Clemson travels down to take on the Demon Deacons this Saturday, a noon kickoff. The Wake Forest Demon Deacons come in 2-3. Clemson's coming in 4-1. They are coming off a pretty big win against North Carolina State. They go into to Raleigh and they steal one from North Carolina State, so they're coming off a pretty big win. They do have losses to Virginia, Ole Miss, and the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. So let's go ahead and dive into the Wake Forest preview. What's your kind of overall thoughts on Wake Forest just coming into this game before we kind of dive into the weeds of what they'll present from a matchup standpoint?
Yeah, when I look at this Wake Forest team, I mean, I don't think this is a typical 2-3 football team. I do think this team is probably a little bit better than their record. They've been kind of unlucky so far this year. They've lost 2 one-score games that they easily could have won. Yeah. They blew a 13-point lead against Virginia a couple of weeks ago. They missed a game-tying field goal against Louisiana that would have sent it to overtime. So there's just some. This team is probably a little bit better than their record would indicate. I think their biggest thing, obviously, if you look at their box scores, it certainly has been, and their defensive numbers, it's certainly been the defense that has kind of plagued them this year. But I think this is more like a Dave Clawson football team than the one we saw last year, where they were just listless offensively, really poor offensive line, not very good quarterback play. I think they've righted some of the ship there on that side of the ball. I think the offensive line has definitely taken a massive step forward from last year. They brought in Hank Bachmeier from Boise State, and actually he was at Louisiana Tech this past year, and at Boise State before that. And he started a lot of football, and he's kind of steadied the ship, and he runs that offense really well. Obviously we talk about that slow mesh. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is a team that has a lot more going for it than probably their record would indicate. And they certainly have some a really balanced attack offensively that Clemson is going to have to contend with. And defensively, I think there will be a lot of opportunities for Clemson to exploit matchups there. But if Wake Forest can score with you, then you might be in for a game. But other than that, I think this is a team that Clemson is going to have to come in, and I don't think they can sleepwalk through this game. So we'll kind of break down further like the matchups, the players, and kind of see how this game is going to shake out.
Yeah, look, Wake Forest is going to come in, or we're going to come into their house, and they're going to be ready, right? They're going to be fighting much like Florida State a week ago. You cannot sleepwalk through this game. As Dabo said in one of his interviews that he gave this week after the Florida State win, is the college football world kind of gifted Clemson a little present wrapped up nicely in the form of last week college football, where multiple top 25 teams lost games that they should not have lost. Whether that be because they sleptwalked through it, got caught by surprise, didn't execute, turned the ball over, whatever the case may be. But having that real life, tangible example to kind of talk to the players about is definitely a win for the Tigers, especially heading into a game like Wake Forest, because all the noise out there and all the stuff are going to be, well, Clemson's supposed to win this game. They should blow Wake Forest out. You see the spread is 20 points. So everything's pointing into the direction, oh, this is going to be easy. You just walk in, you win the game. Well, that's not really how stuff works in college football, as we saw last week. Just ask Alabama, right? Just ask Tennessee. It really doesn't happen that way. Any given Saturday in the world of college football, you can be beat, especially when you don't come out there and execute your game plan. So this Demon Deacons offense is going to come in. They got a lot of those option concepts. That's just kind of how they roll. That's always been their offense. It can give defense fits at times. They're going to take a lot of shots. They're going to touch your corners. They come in with a pretty interesting stat. When I was looking up Wake Forest, they are 71% on fourth down conversions, 10 of 14 on the season. Yeah, Clemson defense better clean that up because we let Florida State go 4 for 4 last week. So clean that up. They have given up 13 sacks, average 151 yards rushing, 279 passing yards. Got 7 passing TDs, 10 rushing TDs, and average 4.4 yards per carry on the season. So Jordan, kind of breaking down this matchup between this Demon Deacons offense and this Clemson Tigers defense. What do you see Wake Forest? How are they going to try to exploit this defense? And what does Clemson really need to focus on in order to slow down this Demon Deacons offense?
Yeah, so I mean, we spent some time just now talking about the Wake Forest passing game a little bit and kind of how they've improved from last season. But when you watch this football team, their offense still runs through their run game.
Mm-hmm.
Damon Claiborne is one of the best running backs in the ACC. They are going when they get in a pinch, they're going to lean on him. When they needed to win that football game against NC State last week, it was the Damon Claiborne show, and they really leaned on him in both the run and the pass to kind of get that offense going. And so I think the first thing for this Clemson defense is stopping the run. You have to be, and that's what makes it really difficult because that slow mesh. Hank Bachmeier is going to keep the ball and for a really really long time and they always have RPOs and glances built into their into their run game. So it stresses your linebackers and really just the second level in general. But also your defensive line has to be a lot more patient. Can't be caught, over pursuing or getting out of their gaps. So that's going to be the biggest thing is winning up front and limiting that run game. Because I think you take your chances. I think with this Wake Forest passing game, I think they have some talented receivers, they're dealing with the loss of one of probably their best, most talented receiver in Donovan Green. He's been limited. Did not play last week against NC State. I believe he got hurt against Louisiana. He will not play in this game, which I'm very. I don't want to say I'm happy about. That sounds bad, but I think for the Clemson defense, it's definitely a load off your shoulders because he is extremely talented. Averages almost 18 yards a catch for his career. The last time you saw him was actually in that 2022 double overtime win. And he had 100 plus receiving yards and like 2 touchdowns. So him and H.C. Perry were kind of eating you alive. So
that was the Nate Wiggins grow up game right there.
Yeah, that was the Nate Wiggins grow up game. Yeah, Donovan Green, really talented player, but he will not be playing in this game. Of course, they still have Taylor Morin, 8th-year senior. It seems like he's been there forever. I think he's about to break like half of Wake Forest for like receiving. If he hasn't broke their receiving career receiving records already, he's pretty close. He's been there a long time. Really reliable slot guy. He's going to be Hank Bachmeier's go-to guy when they're in a pinch. He is their leading receiver. And then they have a couple of guys behind him in Horatio Fields and Deuce. I'm forgetting his last name. 2 really young guys. I cannot think of his last name. Huh?
Alexander.
Yeah, Deuce Alexander. Thank you. That they're really high on, and they have some talent. I think they're going to end up being pretty good football players. But I think if you're Clemson, I think first things first is stopping Damon Claiborne because he is a load and he is extremely difficult. And if they're getting the run game going, it's going to make things all that more difficult in terms of the pass. So winning up front, stopping the run, it should be the first and foremost priority for this Clemson defense. And I think you take your chances. And if they beat you over the top without their true number one vertical weapon, so be it. So I think you have a chance. I'm actually more concerned about this matchup than I am on the other side of the ball. Because we've seen this Clemson run defense be porous at times, and if they're having success and not and guys are not filling their gaps, you could be in for more of a struggle than the point spread would suggest.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the defense is going to have to be really disciplined in this game. You're going to have to be gap sound, like you mentioned. Your eyes are going to have to be in the right place. These option concepts, they start running that slow mesh. You're going to have to blow up that slow mesh, right? You're going to have to start with, to your point, stopping the run, right? And if you can blow up that slow mesh and keep discipline, gap sound, keep your eyes in the right place and limit them in the running game, it'll turn into a long day for that Wake Forest offense. But if they start getting chunk plays on the ground and then they're going to start taking shots, it could turn into a very scary game for the Clemson Tigers. So the defense is going to have to be extremely disciplined, come in with a good plan, got to get pressure from your front four and really affect what they like to do with that slow mesh and some of those RPO and option concepts that they like to run so much. And how you combat that is pressure, staying disciplined in your gaps, and then obviously blowing up the run game. Just like you did last week, holding FSU to 22 yards. Clemson's going to need a similar effort this coming Saturday against the Demon Deacons. Set the edge, not allow stuff to get outside of you, and you'll be able to control the game pretty nicely if the defense can make that happen. Yeah. But transition into the Clemson offense against this Wake Forest defense, obviously the Clemson offense has shown the ability to win a couple different types of ways so far this season. They've shown the ability to be extremely explosive and hit plays over your head and having receivers run wide open and Cade Klubnik just dropping throws all over the place. And then they've shown the ability to last week just kind of lean on Maffa, right? It was kind of the Maffa show against Florida State. Last week he goes for over 150 yards rushing. The offensive line has obviously improved quite a bit against throughout the season. Matt Luke's effect has been greatly felt throughout that room, and we've seen it produce on the field. So what's your thoughts on this Clemson Tigers offense? How are they going to attack this Wake Forest defense, and what are some of the things that Wake Forest is going to do to try to limit what the Tigers do on offense?
Yeah, when you look at this matchup, certainly I mentioned it and pretty much hinted this Wake Forest defense is not particularly good. In fact, they're one of the worst in the ACC. I think there are a lot of things to be had. So I think it really just is. From a football standpoint, I think it's don't overcomplicate things. Do what you do well, and I think you should be able to have success. They have not shown much resistance against anybody this year. Even NC State controlled much of that game. This past week, and they Wake Forest kind of put it together in that fourth quarter to win it. And NC State has not been a particularly good offense either.
Right.
So I really think their pass defense is, I believe, like close to 120th in the country. I think there's certainly will be plays to be had if you especially if you correct some of the issues from last week. I think there will definitely be more opportunities for explosive plays because they can get aggressive at times. And so I'm not going to I'm not going to go into a whole in-depth, schematically they're going to do this and this and that, because I don't really see much of a path for them to have a great day. I think if Wake Forest is going to have a chance in this game, they're going to have to score right with Clemson. Mm-hmm. And so, I just it's not one of the and one of the things I've noticed is usually Wake Forest has had some poor defenses in the recent past. They've had some good ones too, but one thing I've always felt like they've had is at least one or two NFL caliber defensive linemen. I don't really see that this year, and I think that's probably a product of it's probably a product of just how much their depth has been kind of hurt by the in this transfer portal era.
Yeah,
they just have, and Dave Clawson has kind of talked about it this week. I think they've lost some guys, and they're just for year to year it's kind of putting it together from a as far as a transfer portal perspective is concerned, because they lose depth every year. They put in a lot of multiple years into these guys that they get out of high school, for them to go and enter the portal to some other a bigger Power 5 or Power 4 school. And that's kind of the struggle with a team like a program like Wake Forest. And you have to feel for Dave Clawson, because it's his model, and the way that he's built up that program is suffering a little bit because of that. So I think I don't think it's anything wrong with what they do schematically. They just don't have very many good players like they typically do, because they're playing. They have to lean on more young guys and transfers in order to field a defense each year, and that's kind of the world they're living in right now.
Yeah, certainly frustrating from a Dave Clawson standpoint, and he's obviously voiced those frustrations, and it's definitely not easy to deal with as a head coach. But much like you were saying, I think Clemson's offense kind of got their pick of what they want to do in this game. You would like to see the running game continue with the success that they've kind of built. Like to have a good day from the offensive line, be able to lean on those guys, and then pick your shots where you want to take them. But I think the offense won't have very much trouble moving the ball against this Wake Forest defense. But let's not get into a shootout like we did a couple seasons ago. I don't want no Wake Forest shootout in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that's the path for a Wake Forest to keep this game close. And if you have a really poor game on the back end and your defensive line isn't getting pressure and winning up front, you could have some issues. But again, like I said, it's a little bit more mitigated by the fact that they won't have their best deep threat receiver in Donovan Green. So that's one less thing you have to worry about. So it's from a matchup standpoint, on paper, this looks like a pretty good opportunity for the Tigers to kind of keep it rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. But Clemson still got to come in there ready to play, not overlooking Wake Forest, ready to take their best shot. Hopefully we can start fast on the offensive side of the ball. Defense can get a couple stops, and we can put some distance between us and Wake Forest pretty early, and try to turn it on and make it over in a hurry. Hopefully we won't need our buddy Nolan to kick 7 field goals in this game.
Yeah, I
think Clemson is in for a world of hurt if we're settling for 7 field goals in the Wake Forest game.
Yeah, I will have some concerns for sure. If that's
we might not be able to just explain it away as a weird week where we weren't finishing in the red zone.
Yeah,